Section 1, Why We Compare. Psychologist Leon Fixner, I don't know if I said that correctly, but I'm going to put his name up, and hopefully I did say it correctly, but he proposed a theory called social comparison theory. And the basis of this theory is that we as humans naturally compare ourselves to others because we just want to know where we place in terms of status. Like, we have an inherent desire to know where we are in the community or society. Usually it's always status, but it can be like anything, like looks, like athletic ability, it can be anything, but usually deeply ingrained in us, it's always status. And this kind of makes sense because imagine us as humans when we were in tribes, and there was always like an established hierarchy where we basically had to subconsciously or consciously compare ourselves to others in order to understand where we are in that established hierarchy and then act accordingly to our conclusions. Like, if you were in a tribe and you compare yourself to the people around you and you saw that you were stronger, faster than them, you were able to get more resources because of that, and as a result you had more resources than them, you would get a sense of confidence and leadership, and you would simply just feel good about what you're doing and about yourself in general. And that's just simply because you compared yourself to the people around you and you saw that you were the best amongst them, so you acted like you were the best, meaning you acted accordingly to like the comparison or the conclusion of that comparison. Let's go to the other extreme. You're in a tribe and you just look around your fellow tribesmen and you compare yourself and you see that you're the weakest and the slowest one. And as a result of that, you get the least amount of resources for the tribe. And you also have the least amount of resources for yourself. And you'll probably like feel shameful because of that. You'll feel less confidence. You'll feel less dominant. Your self-image will be negative. And these things make sense because just like imagine this. Imagine if the person that was the worst at everything in the whole tribe acted like he was the best one. First, the people in the tribe would probably not respect his leadership. And if they somehow did, by the glory of God, the tribe would probably fall apart. Simply because that person isn't fit to be a leader because he sucks. It's that simple. Or B, they'll probably kick him out to the tribe due to him acting out of line in accordance to his status. He's very low status because he doesn't give enough resources for the tribe and he doesn't have enough resources for himself. So he has low status, but he's acting like he has high status. And due to this, the people will probably kick him out because of how he's acting. He's acting like he has high status. And also imagine this. Imagine if the best in the tribe was acting like the worst in the tribe, having no confidence, having no self-image. He wasn't as dominant. There's a big possibility that his utility and productivity would drop because of that. So there's a big reason why we compare ourselves, and it's very helpful if we know where we are in the world and our status. We can act accordingly to stay in the communities that we're in if we do that. Like, think of this. Why do you think almost every bad king or every bad leader gets overthrown? Just think of any bad king or leader. Why do they always get overthrown eventually? It's because they didn't understand their true status. Yes, they were king, and yes, they were basically led. Like, they can lead the entire country. They can do whatever they want. But they were horrible at doing it. So the people compared that king to the king that does good for their country and actually cares about the people. And realized that their king right now, their king's leadership is like, they don't deserve it, basically. And then they just kick them out as a result of that, which can be from execution or literally just exiling them and just overthrowing like the king. The people or like the people the king are leading, they're comparing their king to the ideal version of it, and if they match up, they're not going to overthrow them. If they don't, if there's a disparity between them, especially if the king is bad, they're going to overthrow the king. So not knowing where you stand in terms of like your community and society, you can suffer. Like, imagine a boss, and this boss is horrible. They don't treat their workers well. They don't care about the establishment or business as much as they should be. They're overall just a bad boss. You would want to either A, leave, and this can destroy the productivity of the business, and if enough employees leave, it can possibly go bankrupt. Or you will want to, possibly request for a new boss. So either way, right, you're comparing like a good boss or your ideal boss to this boss, and there's a disparity between them. And this disparity will make you either like leave, and this can destroy the business, or it can basically, they're being kicked out of their community by, getting them fired and asking for a new boss. You see how this dynamic of people that can't really compare themselves to others can basically ruin their lives? The king is dead and the boss is bankrupt. Of course, there's plenty other examples of instances where not knowing where you stand in a place or community can end really bad for you. But that will just be here all day. But those were just the two that came into my mind. So get that notion out of your mind that comparing yourself to others is bad, because it's really not. Are there bad ways to compare yourself? Of course there are. But we're talking about, as a general concept, comparing yourself can be good and bad. You just need to know which ones are productive for you. Section 2, how we compare. There's two types of comparisons. There's upward comparisons and downward comparisons. An upward comparison, you could probably guess what that means, but to put it brief, upward comparison is when you compare whatever it is, looks, money, status, whatever, to people above you. And this can often lead to two emotions, jealousy and motivation. And let's be honest, we've seen someone that's better than us at something, and we got pretty jealous that they are. But also sometimes we get motivated. And the reason for those I'm going to touch on soon. Downward comparison is exactly what you think. It's the exact opposite of upward comparison. Downward comparison is when you compare yourself to people worse off than you, right? And these can also lead to two feelings, which is scorn and gratitude, right? So scorn is probably like a harsh word, but it's the only word that I kind of could find and think of to describe the feeling. But scorn is basically when you feel like someone deserves everything bad to happen to them, and you believe they're kind of worthless in a way. And again, let's be honest, we probably felt all of these emotions in our life, especially when we're comparing ourselves to someone, bad or good, downward or upward. Like, for example, you see those ads where there's kids in Gaza and you see how dirty they are, or they're starving with no water, they're crying, and you say something to yourself like, I wish I wasn't them, or I'm happy that I'm not them, or something along the lines of that. That's a downward comparison in the lens of gratitude. You're grateful for the things that you have because you saw and compared yourself to the conditions to another person which doesn't have the things you have. And you realize that you don't have it as bad as you think. You ever seen a person and something bad happens to them? It doesn't matter how bad, just something bad happens to them, and you're like, yeah, they deserve it. That's in the lens of scorn. Your downward comparison in the lens of scorn. And usually this is fueled by anger and ego. You see, sometimes when we see someone we know we're better at than something and we compare ourselves to them, it's because we want an ego boost to satisfy, and it can also help with our insecurities. Downward comparison, in my opinion, is always a waste of time. Even if it isn't to scorn, but as a gratitude practice, you really don't need to compare yourself to war-torn children to know what it is that you can be grateful for. There's no need for downward comparison, and people do it a lot. And if you actively seek out downward comparison, you're simply insecure and you have too much ego. So now we have upward comparison and the two feelings that come with it. And I actually believe that both of these feelings are good. And I don't want to misquote off the top of my head, but I believe Nietzsche says something about how negative emotions can actually be good and we can use them on a path of self-actualization or growth. And he briefly talked about jealousy and how jealousy is simply your brain telling you something that you want. If you're jealous that a person is richer than you, then that jealousy is telling you that you want to make money or have financial freedom. So I believe feeling these two emotions are great, and they can actually work together. If you compare yourself and you're not at least a little jealous of the person you're comparing yourself to, it shows that they aren't a person that you need to compare yourself to. Compare yourself to people that you're jealous of, basically. So we compare in two ways, upward and downward. In almost every instance, you should never compare yourself downwardly, or at least, the very least, actively seek it out, because it's a waste and it's literally just there to satisfy your ego and help with your insecurities, and that's it. Another thing to understand how we compare is who we compare to. We compare ourselves to people that are either in the same space or career as us, the same age bracket, or the same gender. So for example, let's say you're a 15-year-old boy. The comparisons that you usually only care about is the comparisons of people that are in that 14 to 18-year-old bracket. Because if you compare yourself to a 30-year-old man that does nothing for you, especially if they're doing better than you. But if a person in that 14 to 18 age bracket is doing better than you, especially better than you in one of your goals that you want to achieve, you're going to either feel jealousy, and the jealousy can branch out into either feeling shame or motivation. I mean, look at social media, and I'm going to touch on social media and what it does to us. But go on social media and look at a 17-year-old benching 405 for reps. And just look at the comments. You'll see either steroid emojis, just filled with steroid emojis, which is jealousy, even if it's rooted in truth. Something can be rooted in truth. You can say the truth but still be jealous. Or you can see shame where people are like, what am I doing wrong, right? Or I'm just gonna quit the gym. That's shame, right? And then you can even see people motivated off like seeing that video and saying you're working hard. I applaud the dedication, all that stuff. So these are all the feelings that come with upward comparisons. And these feelings can be productive. Shame and jealousy can tell you what you want, and also those feelings can be indicators that this person is worth comparing yourself to. But social media and the culture around it, we simply just see the highlight reel. We don't see what's behind the scenes. You see random kids the same age as you or close to the same age as you make tens of thousands of dollars or have the physique of your dreams. But social media is simply an outlet for them to show the highlights. Basically, nobody shows the process, the hard work, the sleepless nights, the slow progress, the uncertainty. Nobody showed the process, only the result. And this continued comparison of the people like similar like to us showing only their successes on social media while you're just sitting there scrolling on hours on end and just seeing only the results and not the process over and over and over again, probably hundreds of times. It keeps you in a place of jealousy and shame. And staying in those states and not switching it over to a place of motivation is what makes it unproductive. And that's why people say don't compare yourself to others. It's because they don't know how to switch off that feeling of shame and jealousy to motivation and admiration. So they're just stuck in that place. And nobody wants to feel jealous and shame all the time. So they're like, if you compare yourself to others, you're going to feel this way, right? So I don't want to feel that way. So don't compare yourself to others. It's you versus you. Section 3, how to compare yourself to others the right way. So first, you compare to people that are similar to you. It can be in profession, age, gender, anything really. But those are the 3 most important ones. And ideally, you want to have as much in common with the person. The more you have in common, the better it will be. So if you're a 15-year-old male that wants to start a business, yes, you can compare yourself to a 65-year-old man that's been in business longer than you've been alive. And you will gain value from that. But a better person to compare yourself to is an 18-year-old male that does business. The reason why is because he's more relatable to you. So the advice that he'll give, more likely than not, will apply more to you than that 65-year-old man. And also, the 18-year-old is probably more in touch than the 65-year-old man. Of course, if the 65-year-old man is in touch, then that's fine. But more likely than not, the 18-year-old is more in touch than the 65-year-old man. Because that 65-year-old man was in business before social media and like this new age. And they did business the old-fashioned way. They had different types of, business models than we have today. And maybe the old-fashioned way can work for you, but more likely than not, it won't. So going to a person that is kind of like in the same era as you can help you make more progress. Because ideologies and methods change over the years. The way business now might not be the same like 30 years down the line. Obviously, some things like the first principles like supply and demand are never going to leave. But in 30 years time, there's going to be new business models, new ways of marketing. In 30 years time, there are going to be new training methods, new diets, new recovery plans, and the list can go on and on. So who you compare yourself to is important. But almost always the people you compare yourself to should have the same goals or at least had the same goals as you in a point in time. Now it's time to filter out the people that you don't want to compare yourself to. Remember when I said you should feel a little bit jealous or shame when like you're comparing yourself to a person? That's how you can filter out. If you feel no shame or jealousy or at least a little bit of motivation and drive, then you shouldn't be comparing yourself to them. Now, usually people compare themselves to people in terms of results. Imagine if that king I talked about in section 1, rather than worry about his status or like money and the results that he would get by being a king, what if he compared his actions, thinking, and habits to a good king like Marcus Aurelius or Nerva or any good king? He wouldn't have like gotten overthrown. Imagine if that boss that got fired or made the business bankrupt started to study like the actions, the habits, the thoughts of CEOs like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Maybe he would have treated the employees better. Maybe he would have actually grew the business and establishment. So basically what I'm trying to say is when you find someone that's worth comparing yourself to, meaning you either feel jealous or shame or motivation when comparing yourself to them, instead of focusing on their results to your results, because when you do that, you're going to feel bad because there's a disparity between you and them in terms of results. And that disparity of like results is the reason why you're stuck in that constant state of jealousy or shame. And that's why you try your best to avoid comparing yourself. Rather, a more productive and healthier way of comparing is see what their actions, how they think, their personal habits and traits Are they consistent? What are the things that they work on? Are they organized? Look at the processes that got them there and compare your traits, action, habits, and the ways of thinking to that. To put it simple, if you do that, then you're going to get the same results. It's just that simple. There's no way to put it. If you do the things that got the person you're comparing yourself to get there, then you're going to get there as well. You might get there faster or slower, it doesn't really matter. But the point is that you're going to get there. So the biggest takeaway is the best way to compare yourself to others is not by the results, but by the actions, habits, thoughts, and traits of these people. Because there's no disparity. If you found out what you have to do to get an aesthetic body, then you can do that the next day if you choose to. Or if you found out this is what you need to do to start a business, then you can do that the next day. There's no disparity between the actions, thoughts, and like habits, right? You can start them today, right? There's no disparity, or at least not as big as the disparity if you just simply compare results. Because if you're comparing yourself to a millionaire and you have $0, that's a big disparity. But if you compare yourself to what the millionaire does, right, it's not going to be as much of a disparity than compared to the actual results. Compare their system, traits, thoughts to yours and see where you differ and change according to get you to where you want to be at. I just want to add, since you watched through this whole video, you're my ideal customer. And I just want to add that I have one-on-one coaching calls, and they're free, by the way, where I help young guys lost in their journey to self-improvement gain clarity and knowledge on how to actually start progressing in their goals without the uncertainty on whether they will achieve their goal or overcome their roadblocks. So again, it's free. You can just book the one-on-one call, and we can just talk about whatever you feel like is stopping you from making progress and like finally accelerating towards your goals. So if you're interested, links in the description below. But that's all I have for you today. I wish you luck on your journey, and peace.